Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. We are at the end of season 3. We're almost done, and I'm kind of depressed that season 3 is coming to an end. But it's been such a great season. I've had so many wonderful human beings on, people, familiar faces returning, new faces appearing, and enriching our Godzilla podcast lore. So, for today's episode, I am particularly excited to have this unbelievably talented and genuinely cool human being join us. They are a 3D animator, a sound designer, and also a streamer here on YouTube. So, I would like to welcome on the ever so wonderful Toku Society. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I am dandy as a dandelion. No, I'm doing very well. I'm really excited to have you on because I don't really think that we've had many opportunities to have some in-depth conversations, that we've been supporters of each other's work, over the past, number of months. And I think we've only been connected for like a year. Hasn't it been like a year thereabouts?
Yeah, it feels like a year, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a year. So, well, no, I'm always excited to have new individuals on because I think it adds such cool layering and context to people's experiences being Godzilla fans ultimately. So, I guess I'm going to start out by saying that, we like to look at the history here of each individual's experiences in the Godzilla fandom. So, how were you first introduced to Godzilla?
It's pretty much like what a lot of people around my age kind of have, because like it really all began with Godzilla in 1998. So like I was a massive dinosaur kid, so of course seeing what essentially was a giant dinosaur running through New York was an absolute delight, which is also kind of a reason why I love Lost Road Jurassic Park. And despite
As one
how
should.
98 hasn't aged well at all in a lot of ways, like Jesus,
Yeah,
why, why,
it
world,
hasn't
why?
really.
I still have like a soft spot for it despite it. I
Well, there's that
also,
nostalgia
yeah,
factor, right?
yeah, like it's like the first Godzilla film technically. So
Mhm.
there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also vaguely remember watching Battle for Earth out of all films strike my aunt since she had that on VHS.
Oh, one of my
Yeah,
favorite films. That makes me so happy.
yeah, that's kind of an odd first pick for a Japanese one, but we all start somewhere.
Right, yeah. I mean, it is kind of, I don't want to say obscure, but it's like right smack in the middle of the Heisei era. So there's like context that viewers could miss out on from the other
Yeah,
films, right?
yeah. First, but I was like hella young, so I didn't. I just saw a giant dinosaur fight big moths and was just enjoying it.
You were like, this is a win. This is perfect, right?
Yeah.
So you said 98 was your first film and then Battle for Earth, right?
Yep.
Interesting, interesting. You're not the first person I've spoken to whose first Godzilla film was 98. And I've mentioned this on the show before, but even though the film has not aged well in every context, like,
Hmm.
I think that it did so much work in invigorating people's interest in Godzilla. And as much as we may not want to deny or admit to it, it does kind of like harken back to the original story in some semblance. But like
Yeah.
I think that there was just so much excitement surrounding it, and I feel like it, if anything, we should celebrate it for that.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Too bad it kind of like fumbled it for the start, but we got the legendary films now, so it's perfectly fine.
Stepping stones, right?
Yeah, baby steps.
No. So I guess so this is when you were a kid, right? So you were like what,
Yeah.
in the single digits at this time?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. As you got older, beyond like this introductory to the Godzilla films, how did being a Godzilla film fan shift for you? Like, did you kind of get more invested in it, or did it kind of like fade away for a while? How did that transform into your teenage years?
So, like, I really didn't know too much about Godzilla aside from, like, primarily the '98 film since I barely remembered Battle for Earth, and that was just, like, a distant memory. But then, like, I was going through, like, YouTube, like, way, way back in the day, and I stumbled across, like, Cinemassacre's top 10 giant movie monsters video. Not Godzilla Dawn, that the giant monsters countdown video specifically. And, like, he had Godzilla as number 1, and that kinda, like, opened my eyes to the wider scope of movie monsters and Godzilla as a whole.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I don't really think that we acknowledge the level of, I don't know, excitement that Cinemassacre created, like, with his early YouTube videos, especially like the Godzilla-thon ones. Like, I know that was
Oh,
responsible
for
for getting
sure.
a lot of people into Godzilla. So, I don't know, it just makes me nostalgically reminisce about the internet of old and,
Yeah.
you know, all the really cool things that people used to do, right? So, okay, so once Cinemassacre piqued your interest even further, where did it go from there?
Let's say it just kinda cemented who I was gonna be as a person. So, like, after all of that, I winded up just being, like, completely obsessed with Godzilla till, frankly, this day, honestly. Like, I made, like, comic books, giant paper puppets, short films that are unfortunately lost to time because, I don't know how to preserve things. I
Oh,
even, like,
no.
made a mod for Jurassic Park Operation Genesis that has, like, a bunch of Godzilla monsters is, like, almost to scale, like, not too big to where you can't really, like, see them on the map, but, like, big enough. And yeah, yeah, it's still up. Like, even, like, a big Jurassic Park VTuber, Dustin Slot, covered it, and you just see them, and it's like, "I can't believe I made this on a
So
whim.
this is one of the
Why
first
not?"
things you made then, right?
It was, like, way back in, like, 2018, I believe? It's been
2018.
a hot
So is
minute,
that
yeah.
still on your current YouTube? Is that on your current YouTube channel or is it a different YouTube channel?
It is on my YouTube channel. Around the early 2020s, I believe, I decided to just compile, like, all the mods I made for that game into, like, one video, and the Godzilla one was, like, one of them.
Oh. So see. No, like I asked that because like all of my old Godzilla video stuff, like my edits and stuff were on like an old channel. And then
Mhm.
I lost half of it because that channel
Aw,
ceased to exist, right? So now like part of my journey and especially it's doing this show has kind of invigorated me to do this. I've been kind of unearthing like old footage that I have found like in
yeah.
the deepest recesses of my archive.
Yeah, I've been seeing you,
And
like, post them.
yeah, and
They're
they've been
pretty interesting.
wild. They've been so when you look back at that older material versus your material now, as like an animator, a designer, a streamer in general, how does that make you feel? Like, does it feel good to see your progression?
Oh, it totally does, yeah. It's just like,
So
man,
oh, go
I've
ahead.
came this far. I've really
Right.
come this far. It's
Oh
wild.
my goodness. So obviously Godzilla is largely responsible for the existence of what you do on YouTube, essentially, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, I guess now looking back on it, like, do you like, your channel has grown so much, and you have, like, what, 25,000 subscribers at last check that I saw? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so what made the blow up happen? Or has this been, like, a continual thing over the years?
I feel like it's just been, like, a continual thing. Cause like, I started, like, really working on, like, my YouTube channel around, like, the summer of 2016. Cause like,
Mhm.
the Shin Godzilla was coming out, and I it's like during that summer I really didn't know what to do over it, so I'm just like I was just looking through like different videos and I saw like animated Godzilla content. I'm just like, this is cool. I kind of want to start making all of this. Why not? Let's try this out. And yeah, so
Uh,
like they started like doing like all these animations. Most of them were like made in this program called Miku Miku Dance, which you know the name suggests it's for dance videos, but people decide to not completely
People
make
would
dance
literally do
videos out of
everything
it.
else on it.
Yeah, like those Godzilla anime trilogy fights that
Yeah,
that like get so many views on YouTube. Like, good work. Yeah, all those were done in that program. It's wild.
that is so cool. I really commend people's patience in working, especially in visual arts, whether it be like, drawing, painting, animating. Like, it takes so much time to do that. And I wish I had that patience and bandwidth to do such things, but truthfully, it requires a vision, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm really happy to see how much it's grown for you. And, like, I mean, you have so much engagement on your channel too. Like, I was looking through many of your comments and stuff that you get, and people are really, I mean, I've seen people be pretty encouraging, very excited about what you do. Like, sometimes, like, I remember, I was watching one of the recent ones, and people were just so amused by some of the decisions that you made with regard to like your animation and your editing. I was just like,
Mm.
that's the vision. That is the vision.
Though I won't lie, most of it was just done on a whim. Just like, oh, what if I just do this? And the results speak for themselves.
That's honestly some of the best art happens when it's done spontaneously at a whim, right?
Very true.
Because sometimes if you overplan, like you can kind of sabotage yourself. I know I have been that person before where I have kind of sabotaged myself. But no, like I am really excited about the trajectory that you've been on, and I think that it creates good representation for other people who are excited into going in the direction of animation. And we will have that conversation a little bit more toward the end of the episode as well, because I would like to hear your perspective on some advice that you have for fans at a certain point. But we're here to continue delving into the history though, right? So looking back on your whole history as a Godzilla fan, which films would you say are your current favorites and why? I usually tell people to go with a top 3 if they're able to pick 3.
Oh boy, it's gonna be hard to choose. I mean, undoubtedly one of them is like -1. I know, big shocker there. But
-1. What's
such
that
a
film? I've
good.
never heard of it.
I know it's such a indie flick. It's really underground. No one really
I
knows about
know.
it. But yeah, like -1, absolute banger of a movie. I adore it so much. Like, my God.
No, me too. Well, so I guess what aspects of -1 like really drew you in?
Oh, for sure. Like the whole plot of it, like taking place even before 1954, and like about this pilot that was like super close to death, but decided to not do it in pursuit of living because it's like his family,
Mm,
and like the characters overall are just like so like filled with humanity and like charm. It's like how can you not hate them? Like
mhm.
love them. They're just great.
They're so memorable when you think about it. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't characters in other Godzilla films that aren't memorable, because there are plenty. But,
Yeah.
like, I would say, like, like, you were talking about the film having, like, a lot of humanity in it. I think that aspect itself is what really makes the characters stand out so much. Like the characters, struggling with day-to-day things while this out of the world calamity with this creature is happening, right? And the fact that these humans who are, literally just trying to survive, but they're also living while they're, like living their day-to-day life. Like, I thought that was very connectable for the audience, right?
Yeah.
No, I find it very interesting. I personally really resonate with a lot of the mental health messaging in that Godzilla film specifically because I don't know, it's just seeing somebody who has trauma come to a realization and make peace with that trauma was very unique, I would say, to see in a Godzilla film.
Oh, it definitely hit close to home with me too. Literally, I was like kind of going through like a really interesting time during like when the film came out. So like seeing that and seeing like, oh yeah, you can make it through this. You just live, you know. It just resonated with me.
No, I like that. Like the yeah, like so the message of survival, right? I mean,
Yeah.
each of us, depending on the situation, go through like a lot of different challenges, and I think that's one thing that I've had plenty of conversations on the show with others about is the fact that, yeah, like Godzilla, we can escape through Godzilla. Like that's it's very good escapist media,
Mhm.
but it also helps us come to terms with things. It helps us learn more about ourselves, unpack things, etc. And I think that's one of its many appeals. So I'm glad that Godzilla Minus One was able to help you during that time in some fashion.
Not to mention Godzilla himself is just an absolute menace, and I love when Godzilla is being a menace.
I'm always happiest when Godzilla's a menace as well. So minus one is your first. So what's your second?
You know, I think it might be 2000 actually.
Ooh, okay. So what makes you select Godzilla 2000?
I mean, humans are like absolutely like gold. I really loved them. Like also just the whole idea of like storm chasers, but for kaiju is just such a cool idea. How does no one else like decide to go through with that?
You know, I'm surprised that's not manifested itself since in the Godzilla fandom or in the
Okay,
Godzilla franchise,
yeah,
right? Because that was, I mean, we've seen so many iterations of things like G-Force and like Counter G, but like seeing like these just scrappy, like the family who is just storm chasing Godzilla, like it was such a unique perspective and opted for like allowed for some good humor moments too, which I really
yeah.
appreciated.
It's like oddly enough, one of like the more grounded Godzilla films, despite it having an alien as one of the big villains of it.
Interesting. So, what makes you say that it's a grounded Godzilla film? I'm curious.
It's just like their motivations for like why they're going after Godzilla, and, like trying to study him of sorts.
hmm that makes sense because I mean, we see like especially in the Heisei Godzilla films, there was kind of like these odds between military might and scientific curiosity, right? And I
Yeah,
think that Godzilla 2000 really brought those opposing things together and made for such a really unique story because that was kind of like the conflict of most of the film, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
some people were just wanting to study Godzilla and be like, "Ooh, Godzilla's super interesting." Whereas like others were like, "We're done. We're done with Godzilla."
yep.
Now that film deserves, I think, a lot more celebration than it often gets, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. That was kind of similar with Godzilla versus Megaguirus. Godzilla 2000 was a film that at the beginning when I first watched it, I actually did not like it that much.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I attribute that though because I was so used to the Heisei era that like it seemed like a shock to my system because it seemed quite Godzilla looked dramatically different.
Mhm.
Um, like it was just like a different atmosphere altogether. But over the years, I've gone back and I've rewatched it and I've rewatched it and rewatched it, and now it feels very comforting to watch that film for some reason. I don't know why.
Yes, one of
Hmm.
us. Yeah, I really adored the film. The soundtrack it lives free, rent free in my head. It's so good.
Oh, I do love that soundtrack as well. Oh, especially at the end when like after Godzilla kills Katagiri, and he's like just like across the cityscape, like it's just like hellfire, like like the score was and the cinematography, the effects, so beautiful in a hellish, terrifying way, but beautiful.
Yeah.
The film was like, you think Godzilla's a hero? Just kidding.
Mm.
All right, well now I have to know number 3. What was number 3?
So many films are just coming across my head. Like, oh, it's probably this one, or it's probably this one. You know, I'm just gonna list off like a bunch of them, because why not?
Do it.
GMK, because like Baragon is best puppy, and I love the messaging behind the film.
Oh,
You know,
I love Baragon so
like
much.
Japan as a whole, like wasn't like completely the victim in World War II.
Yeah.
And they just
Yeah,
really
so that it
acknowledge
did
that.
create some very interesting historical context in that film, right?
Yeah. Also, like the whole Guardian Monsters idea is like so cool, especially with King Ghidorah
Mhm.
basically being like Orochi.
I know, right? I guess as much as I love that film, I really wish we could have seen them in like their fully evolved, aged forms.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like Mothra with tails would have been so cool to see. Like I just that would have been great. That would have been great. Or at least a flashback or something, right?
right.
I don't know. Well, you said you were going to give me a list. So GMK is the first one on your continued list. Are there any other ones?
Yes. Biolante is just like a
Oh,
gorgeous film.
oh, sorry.
Oh, you get over there.
I'm reacting dramatically. I just ripped the headphone out of my ear. Anyway, Violante, yes.
I absolutely adore Biolante. It's such a gorgeous film, and I frankly wish that they kept the ending like the 2D animation in it. That's just so good.
So coming from the so you're an animator, right?
Yeah.
I bet you when you saw those deleted scenes from Godzilla versus Biollante, like what was your immediate reaction?
I'm just like, I understand why they didn't put them in the film, but I really wish they were kept in the film.
Right, like wouldn't it be really cool if someday in the future, Toho, here's an idea for you. If we got like a cut of the film
Mm,
with like alternate versions with like the deleted scenes in place,
that
like an
would be
extended
so good.
edition.
Yes, I would love that.
Oh my god, that would be so amazing. No, like I like the way that film. I personally feel that film is way ahead of its time. You've
Oh,
watched
for
the show
sure.
before. You know how much I go on and on about Godzilla versus Biollante. So sorry for going on a tangent, but
I don't
no,
mind at all. It
just
is
so
your show
like
after all.
right,
You can
right.
do that.
This is true, but I really feel like the film was so ahead of its time because of how much it wanted to test boundaries and experiment, right?
Mm.
I mean, case in point, like with the animation, um, it experimented with claymation as well, I believe, if memory serves me
Oh
correctly.
yeah, yeah.
And you know, like obviously, in the grand scheme of things, do they look like they fit into the film?
Nah,
Not, no, like not really.
that
But
they're certainly experimenting there,
they
and
were
I commend
certainly
them for that.
yeah, we commend experimentation because they were trying to stretch themselves. They were trying to test the boundaries of like, hey, we're doing a new Godzilla film. We want it to be different than what we've done. We don't want to just churn
Yeah.
out the same thing all the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, other ones on your list. So GMK, Biolante.
Okay, so so this is gonna be like a double. The Showa Mechagodzilla duology.
Oh, so Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and then Terror of Mechagodzilla. What makes you
Yes.
choose those ones?
I mean, like, sure, they're like run of the mill in terms of like the Showa era formula, but they also kind of like have like a grungy yet mystical vibe that I just really adore.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite descriptors. Grungy yet mystical vibe. Kind of does, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, like I would honestly describe the Heisei era of got like the late Heisei films as grungy with a dollop of mysticism.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
No, I really like that descriptor. And no, they are very formulaic. Like they do adhere to the classic Godzilla formula, and for the Showa era specifically.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and we can always appreciate that, right? We like a good
Right.
formula. That is a great list, honestly. Like a
But
very
there's
diverse
one
list
more.
too.
There is one
Oh,
more
there's
film.
one more. Oh my god, I need to
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So like I know this film gets a lot of flack, but I won't lie.
Oh.
I really like Godzilla's Revenge. Ichiro's just like me for
Toku Society, how dare you like that film? How dare you? I'm kidding.
real. I mean, look, Ichiro's just like he's like a kid who loves Godzilla and occasionally daydreams about being on Monster Island, hanging out with the monsters. I mean, we've all been there
You know,
to a certain degree.
if anybody ever tells me, if any Godzilla fan ever hates on that film and and admits that they did not fantasize about being on Monster Island themselves, I will call them out on their bullshit.
Real.
I'll be like, listen, you absolutely imagined yourself on Monster Island.
Right.
Do you want to know a shameless confession?
Oh, do tell.
So, when I was a kid, I would pretend in my very delusional, imaginative child brain that all of the kaiju on Monster Island would get together and have concerts.
Uh,
Like imagine a bunch of kaiju in a band singing a
uh-huh.
concert. Would that not? I mean, we got them talking in Godzilla vs. Gigan. Why
Yeah,
would this be out of the realm of imagination?
that's a good point. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
cute. Kind of like gives me like a where the wild things are kind of vibe to it.
Kind of, yeah. And like, I don't know, like, I forgot about that memory until, of course, I was dredging up this old footage that I mentioned before.
Mhm.
And I was just like, wow, I had an active imagination.
It happens. It'd be like that. Yeah.
It does happen, yeah. Well, okay, so let's expand into talking about kaiju and human characters just a little bit. So, are there any particular kaiju or human characters that you're drawn to? And if so, what draws you to them?
So like in terms of favorite kaiju, I know my mascot for my channel was like originally scared Skeletor because like he's a cute little fella that's a little underrated, you know. But like
I love
honestly,
Skeleturtle.
in reality, yeah, Skeletor was pretty cool. But like in reality, Titanosaurus is like my all-time favorite. Second to Anguirus, Biollante, and Mothra, they honestly just kind of flip
So they're
flop me all the time.
are they tied for first and then Titanosaurus?
Yes. Right, I just think Titanosaurus is neat, as far as, like, really unique, and I just love his design overall. It's a really nice, appealing looking design to me.
Same. I feel like Titanosaurus does not get the love it deserves.
He really doesn't, and it's a shame.
And I think one of my favorite things about Titanosaurus, I remember mentioning this to someone else, or maybe they mentioned it to me, I cannot remember, but Titanosaurus, I felt so bad for that for the character because it's basically just being manipulated the entire time to fight. It doesn't
Yeah,
know what's happening. It doesn't know why it's being manipulated. And it's
yeah.
just to me like that character is almost like if you gloss over the camp of Showa Godzilla films, it's
Mhm.
very much a tragic character.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I kinda,
So
like, saw a bit of Titanosaurus in, like, Shimo while watching The New Empire, honestly, just, like, a kaiju that's just been, like, manipulated for, like, a long, long time.
I'm loving these parallels. These are great. No, I think that's a great point. I think that's probably why,
Mhm,
like, for some reason, Shimo's story, like, I don't know, it seemed familiar to me, but it was like also like kind of a fresh take, right?
mhm.
That was like she's very much a more sweet, cuddly old lady Titanosaurus.
She is, yeah. I didn't think about that till now.
I love that. I'm very surprised that I mean, aside from a couple of Godzilla games, we've not really seen any new variation or version of Titanosaurus at all. And that
Unless you
kind of
call it
makes me
Singular Point.
sad. I forgot about Singular Point. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible fan.
I
Well,
heard
I'm
everything
in a
about
live
Singular Point
action
already.
adaptation. What was
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I don't really think about Singular Point all that much either, but like Salonga's cool. I dig the different forms of Rodan. They're pretty neat.
Right. Well,
That part's
and
pretty cool.
P.S. Everybody, don't eviscerate me. But me forgetting about Singular Point does not mean I dislike Singular Point.
Yeah,
My inner Star Trek loving nerd brain loved Singular Point very, very much.
same.
It's been a long time since I've watched it. I really should honestly rewatch Singular Point.
Yeah.
But we didn't get a live act. We haven't gotten a live action Titanosaurus since the
Mm.
original film.
Though there is always next year, since Titanosaurus' anniversary is next year.
Right, I keep forgetting about that. Titanosaurus is going to be 50, right? 50 years
Yeah, yeah,
old?
I
Oh,
believe so.
wow.
We're gonna get a lot of merch. I'm very excited.
Maybe we'll get one of those shorts that Toho's been doing of
Oh,
like they did for like Godzilla
yeah,
versus Megalon. We need a short. We need a short.
that would be great.
Although Toho, if you're listening, probably not. You're probably not listening. Um, but I can be delusional. I am salty that nothing was done for Mothra's 60th anniversary.
Oh yeah, you're so right. Yeah,
We
it's
need to have a
Mothra.
conversation about that. Like how there was such an oversight. If only they'd hire us, we would do Mothra justice, right?
Yep, couldn't agree more.
But anyway, um, okay. So Titanosaurus. Did you have any other ones that you really connected with?
uh, I that is a good question. Yeah. Honestly, Manila's a pretty cool one. I dig Manila, and by extension, Godzilla Jr. and his little growth stages. Little Godzilla especially is super cute.
Oh, I love Little Godzilla so much. Little Godzilla is so cute. Definitely my favorite variation of. Well, I also think that just Little Godzilla was pulled off so well because, like, Godzilla versus Space. Well, no, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, all the way through Destroyer, really made sure that everyone was emotionally attached
Yep.
to Little Godzilla, right? To the
Hmm.
point where we were eventually emotionally damaged watching Godzilla versus Destroyer.
Yep. They did him dirty, but at least they revived him at the end.
Right. We just had to wait to the end to find any sense of relief.
Yep.
So, what about the human characters? Like, I'm very curious as to which humans you really find interesting.
I mean, I obviously listed off like the whole cast from -1 in Millennium, but like, yeah, but like, of course, there's more. Of course, there's always more. Like Akane from Against Mechagodzilla. I wish she
Love
showed
her.
up in like Tokyo SOS, but oh well.
Beyond just being like a cameo, right? Like, I would have
Right.
loved for her to be a main character.
Yeah, that would have been great, but nope, not then. Oh well.
I know, right?
A bit of an oddball here, but like Shisaku from versus Gaigen, the corn guy.
Uh, how, how can we not like the corn cob guy?
Right. It's the corn
Like,
cop guy.
if anybody, okay, similar to Godzilla's Revenge, Fantasy Monster Island, if anybody says that they do not like Corn Cob Guy, I'm immediately suspicious of them.
Yes.
Immediate suspicion.
He easily stole the show for me, besides Gaigen himself in that film.
Right. That film, that film has such an interesting cast of very different characters.
Yeah,
Somehow, despite their differences, they somehow work together.
they
How does it
managed to
make
pull it off
sense?
somehow. I have no idea. You're built different, I guess.
Right. The 70s were a wild time. Not that
They
I mean, I
really
wouldn't remember
were.
that.
Yeah.
But so interesting. How is there a third one?
Um, two more actually. X from Final Wars, because who doesn't love a goofy villain? Yeah.
Who doesn't like an attractive villain? Like, goofy.
Yes.
Oh no, you're getting me on that tangent. No, so I promised this season that I would calm myself. But no, great villain. That's all I'll
Yes,
say about
I
it.
I love him. He's wonderful.
All right, what's your next one?
Honestly, it's Trapper from New Empire. I really loved him. He's great. I hope he appears in more MonsterVerse films.
I do too. Like, he was funny, but not like obnoxious funny. He clearly
Yeah.
had a role, and his role was written well, which I
Mm.
think is why people kind of fell in love with him, right?
He's kind of like Buck Wild in a sense. Buck from Ice Age.
Absolutely. That's a good point. That's a good juxtaposition.
He kind
Just
of he
like
kind of
that.
like immediately reminded me of him, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna love this guy.
Well, but just like kind of like he's just like this hoity-toity character that just
Yeah.
is unbothered.
Mm.
I think that's what makes it so good. Well, I have a big. So we're at the midway point, and I have the big question.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, I mean, we've talked about the histories. We've talked about how Godzilla has influenced you as like a creator, right? But
Hmm.
I mean, we could go even further, and I could ask like how Godzilla has shaped you into the person you are today.
So, like, admittedly, I was the type of kid who was like super knee deep in nerd culture all my life. Because
Mm-hmm.
like the only people I really could talk to about like a whole bunch of nerdy interest in like my younger years was like my dad, since he raised me up with like a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different films and shows and all that. But then like fourth grade rolled around, and one of my teachers and her son loved Godzilla, and that just kind of like shook me for a bit. It's like, oh my god, there's more people out there that love this goofy little lizard. And like the best thing is, like every weekend when I'm like in her class, she gave me this classic media box set. Like not like the submarine looking one, but like the very rainbow foily one.
Mm-hmm.
And like I watch like all those films so much.
Ah,
And like over the years, I have like a couple other teachers and friends who were into Godzilla, like especially after 2014 came out, and
mm-hmm.
I could just talk to them about them like all the time, essentially.
That's so wholesome. And like going back to what you were mentioning about nerd culture, I think as kids, especially as Godzilla fans, like, and you may have experienced this as well, but like before we ended up ever connecting to other people who liked Godzilla, like it was very isolating, right?
Oh, definitely.
So when we get to a point where we start meeting people who love Godzilla, like it's very much kind of like a shock to our system because it's like,
Yeah. Mm,
oh my God, there's somebody else who resonates with this.
yeah.
Right. And the fact that you were in school and you got to a point where you had like teachers and everything kind of like affirming it, that's wonderful. Like I love to hear that.
Oh, for
And I
sure.
think one of like, going back to the whole nerd culture thing, I think nerd culture is very infectious, especially to people who are innately curious. And one
Mm,
of my favorite things to do is to get those curious people into Godzilla. Like one of my best friend's kids, he's like 9 years old, got him obsessed with Godzilla.
aw.
So obsessed. And just like to the point where he's asking questions, he's like, kind of creating like these imaginary battles in his mind. Who would win this? And I'm just like, this is like, I'm kind of reliving childhood, like just listening to this person talk about like these different scenarios. It's such a really cool experience. And
Right.
no, I'm really glad you got to share that with some other people though.
Yeah, like this even like kind of went all the way up to like graduation in high school, because like my history teacher, like one day out of the blue, he just like had a bunch of X Plus Godzilla figures like on his desk. I'm just like, wait, what the fuck? I'm just like, you're like Anguirus and like the '84 Godzilla, and I'm like, why have I not? Why have I not known this? And like a couple of days before I graduated, we were just hanging out and like chatting, and then he decided, we're gonna put on versus Gigan, during like this class because why not? And then after that, we watched the original '86 Transformers movie. And I'm like, this is great.
Though that sounds amazing.
It was
That
it was it was
sounds.
great. I really did that.
Where were all the cool teachers at my school who liked Godzilla? Like
Really?
I had teachers who were aware of Godzilla, but they were like, "Oh, that's your thing."
Hmm.
They're like, "Oh, that's the kids thing," and I'm like, "Godzilla's is like your age, teacher. Like
Right.
what? Like you're not into Godzilla? What's going on?" But no, I love that. Like those are the memories you don't forget, right?
Oh, totally.
Uh, well, you mentioned collecting. So this teacher
Mhm.
clearly was a collector. Do you have a fondness for collecting Godzilla figures or memorabilia?
You know what? I adore collecting, but I've never had a disposable income for it.
That's the hard part, right?
It really is.
Well, so I guess what do you have in your collection as it is right now?
I have a couple of the NECA figures. I have a couple of the old Bandai America stuff. Most of it I've gotten as like gifts for like my birthday or Christmas, or like through a couple of friends, like Matt Frank. Shout out to him. He's great.
He is
But yeah,
wonderful.
just like yeah, I think like one of my favorites is like this bootleg looking Godzilla figure that my dad had. It doesn't look it like sort of looks like Godzilla. He just doesn't have any dorsal plates, just like these bumps across his back. I feel like you probably like know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep, I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah, I tried figuring out like if it had like a name or anything, but nothing came up. It's just like, oh, it's just a giant monster. And we're like, okay, so it's just like a weird bootleg figure. Got it.
Yeah. I had a Pteranodon one that looked similar to Rodan. I never
Oh,
had a Rodan figure until recently. Well, not recently. That figure I have back there is from like
yeah.
15 years ago. But no, like so like I just pretended that like this little Pteranodon, this like the little off-brand, great value brand Pteranodon was Rodan, and it got me through.
That's kind of what I did with like a bunch of dinosaur figures I have. Oh, this is just gonna be a stand-in for this monster, you know?
Again,
But,
that's part of our active imaginations, right?
mm,
No, I love that. I love that. So, what would be like your dream piece of memorabilia be?
oh, oh man, there's a lot of stuff I want to have in my collection, like the Revotech or X Plus figures. But I think one in particular is this like remote control Showa Mechagodzilla. It's like my white whale, essentially.
It's
Like
my white
like I
whale.
know as soon as I see someone put it up for sale, and I have like the means to afford, I will get it as soon as possible.
It's my white whale. That broke me. Oh, Toku Society, this has been such a great conversation. I do have one other question for you though, before we
Mhm.
wrap things up for this episode. Now, like obviously we have our platforms, we have our creative outlets that we put out there. We have a following, right? What advice do you have for Godzilla fans who may be new to the franchise? And then afterward, I'll also ask you what advice you have for people going into animation.
Ooh, okay. So like I mean I'm not really the best at advice, but something that I've learned while in this community is just, do what you love and take it in stride.
Mhm.
Because like I've seen so many people like unapologetically bash other people for like their opinions or what they put out there in the world, and it's just it ain't fun. Like I won't lie, admittedly, I am kind of guilty of it, but I've just mellowed out over the years. You know,
Yeah. No, I think we've
it's
all
just
been
not
there.
fun just straight up bashing people like what they do or like like some people are just gonna want to criticize like a fan film of like Godzilla fighting like a Mario character or whatever. It was like I mean, they're doing what they love. I'll give them that.
Mhm.
Regardless of the quality of it, at least they're doing what they love. You know?
Absolutely. It's funny because you said that you're not very good at advice, but I often find that people who say that are typically very good at advice because I think that was a very sound piece of advice.
I got more. We've heard this year there's just like a whole lot of troublesome people within the community. So just a little food for thought. Just be wary of who you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, because you never know what people have like in terms of skeletons in their closet. I've
Mhm.
worked that a lot, but it's fine. But like
Yeah.
another thing, one more thing. This seems like such a no-brainer, but it goes without saying, you just broaden your horizons. There's like a whole lot of Godzilla adjacent things or like stuff in the wider Tokusatsu sphere that's way more creative, or even in some cases significantly better than like 98% of whatever Godzilla content comes out. Because like I've been getting into Kamen Rider and Ultraman, Garo, and Super Sentai since like 2019, and
Mhm.
I've been blown away by like the amount of amazing things I've seen. And there's always a little something for everyone. So like give these other properties a shot. There's always something that you'll find that you love.
Oh, that is a good piece of advice too. Like, broadening our horizons, I know, like, some people are very uncomfortable doing it, but you don't know that you love something unless you, like, examine it in some way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I never knew that I would love Ultraman until I watched Ultraman Nexus,
Oh, that's a
and
good one.
it caused a spiral for me. I was like, "I am obsessed with Ultraman right now." And and I never really would have given it a second thought unless somebody was like, "Hey, Donnie, you should check this out. Like, you might like it." And I think, like, people when they share their preferences, they're not, always doing it just to do it. They're doing it because they think that you may genuinely take something away from whatever they're recommending, right?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm dying to know what your advice would be for like people who are wanting to go into animation or sound design or streaming. Like, you have such a wealth of experience. What advice would you impart to them?
Ooh. In terms of animation, just kind of jump right into it, honestly. That's what I've done. I just jumped into it and hope for the best and just learn as I went along about like stuff that sort of like confused me a little bit. Same goes with like sound design work, cuz like something that I've noticed like over the years before I started up my channel was just like how like incredibly limited that like the sound effects were throughout like Godzilla stuff that people makes. And I
Mhm.
figured, you know what? I why not? I'm gonna like try and like make whole sound libraries where people can like get all sorts of sounds from the films that aren't like readily available, so that they can use them in their films or whatever.
I love that. I Artists supporting artists, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, this has been such a good conversation. I really hope that people take something away from this and realizing that, you know, if you are an artist or a writer or musician or whatever, like, going back to your advice, like, just jumping into it is literally that important step to take, right?
Yep, it's a leap of
And
faith.
exactly. And I think that that's the thing that really messes people up because, like, that fear, that pressure can get in the way of them before they
Mm,
even take that crucial step. So, excellent advice on that front. 100%.
thank you.
Well, where can people find your stuff? Plug away.
Well, I I'm essentially everywhere on social media besides like Instagram, honestly. But like I'm most active on YouTube and Twitter, which just so happen to be linked right here on the video right here. Yeah. Until that inevitably shuts down. But in case
Okay,
that
we know
ever
it's gonna
shuts down,
happen.
then yeah, it's gonna happen eventually. But there's also Blue Sky. They implemented videos recently. Though there's
You
like 1 minute
know,
long, but still there.
I have a Blue Sky account. I just haven't used it much. I need to. I don't even think we're friends on there yet, are we?
I don't think so either. We gotta fix
We
that.
gotta remedy that situation. So,
Right.
So YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, any other place you want to plug?
I mean, that's pretty much where I'm like the most active on. So yeah, that's pretty much
Perfect.
it.
Perfect. My friend, this has been a great conversation, and
It's been
thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for taking time and joining me. And um, I always will leave a seat open for you if you ever want to return,
Of course,
because I could
I would
definitely
gladly
envision a part
return.
two.
Yes.
My friends, thank you for watching as always. Don't forget to do the usual click like, subscribe to this channel, go follow and subscribe to Toku Society, please, as well. And don't forget that Growing Up with Godzilla premieres on the first and third Sunday of every month, relatively. You can also listen to the first season of Growing Up with Godzilla on your favorite streaming service like Spotify or Amazon. I'm in the process of slowly getting the show out there on different streaming platforms, so thank you for your patience. And last but certainly not least, don't forget to keep standing tall, my friends. Bye.